Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. In this video we will discuss transport through the cell membrane. It is part of the cell physiology, but it is discussed here because it is important in understanding the transport of the different molecules across the epithelial cell membrane of different organs in the body, like GIT, renal system, and other systems. In this video, this is the cell, and this is intracellular space and extracellular space. Between these two spaces, this is the cell membrane that encloses the cell. This cell membrane, it is made of lipid. So lipid soluble molecule can freely and easily pass through this cell membrane. For example, gases like CO2, oxygen, and steroid hormone can freely pass through this cell membrane, while lipid insoluble substance cannot pass through the cell membrane. For this, there is a special channel protein. Through this substance can cross the cell membrane. For example, there is channel protein for each substance. Through this, molecule can cross the cell membrane, which is lipid insoluble, and this is high specificity. There is channel protein for sodium, there is channel protein for the chlor, and etc. In discussing the different type of the transport, there is diffusion and active. In discussing the first type, which is the diffusion, it is need no energy, depending on electrochemical gradient, and from its name depend two type, electrical gradient and chemical gradient. In discussing the chemical gradient, we choose non-charged molecule, for example glucose. Transport of any substance like glucose can easily pass from high concentration to low concentration. For this in this example, glucose can freely pass from extracellular high concentration to the intracellular low concentration through special channel, and this need no energy because with the chemical gradient. In discussing electrical gradient, we should understand that the intracellular space have negative charge, while the extracellular space have positive charge. So, electrical molecule, like with positive charge molecule, can be repelled from the extracellular to the intracellular and attracted intracellularly. In opposite, negative charge molecule repelled from the intracellular and attracted extracellularly. This is for electrical gradient. If different molecule have charged molecule and different in chemical concentration, so the like for potassium, high concentration intracellularly will move it extracellularly, while positive charge will move the potassium inside. If the chemical gradient stronger than electrical gradient, this will push the potassium from inside to outside, while if the electrical gradient is stronger than the chemical gradient, this will push the potassium from the outside to inside the cell. If both electrical and chemical gradient the same, so no transport. Discussing the active, it is also of two types. It is need energy. It is either primary active transport or secondary active transport. In discussing the primary active transport, in this type it is need energy, and in this example we discuss the important pump, which is the NAK ATPase. In this example, sodium passes from the low concentration intracellularly to high concentration extracellular, and in opposite, potassium passes from the low concentration extracellular to the high concentration intracellular. This type of transport need energy, and this energy taken from the mitochondria by conversion of the ATP to the ADP. The energy in this type of needed for transport against chemical electrical gradient, and this type of energy, it's important to keep the transport of this molecule across the cell membrane against the chemical electrical gradient. Other type is the secondary active transport. In this type of transport, molecule passes from the low concentration to high concentration with the as the co-transport. For example, sodium glucose transport. Sodium is high extracellularly and low intracellularly, while the glucose is opposite, high intracellularly to low extracellular. We need to pass the glucose from the extracellular space to the intracellular space. For this passage, is facilitated by the passage of the sodium with the chemical gradient from the extracellular high concentration to the intracellular low concentration. So this allows the passage of the glucose from the extracellular to the intracellular against electrochemical gradient. For this type of transport to continue, we should keep the low concentration of the sodium intracellularly. To keep this low concentration, we should have active transport in opposite direction. To this type of energy, active transport need energy, and this energy is important to keep sodium low inside. Now discussing the water transport across the cell membrane. Water with different concentration of the solvent inside this water can transport across the cell membrane. The different concentration of the solvent can be simplified as the sediment. Water can pass from the high concentration extracellular to the low concentration intracellular according to the chemical gradient. But we cannot assess the water concentration inside the water. So instead, we used the concept of the osmolarity. The osmolarity is the concentration of the solvent inside the water, and the water can freely pass from the low osmolarity with low concentration of the solvent to high osmolarity with high concentration of the solvent.